All right, we're back. We are MAPD714. That's iOS development in the fall 2017 semester at Centennial. And it's week 11 officially, part 1 of our broadcasts. And I want to talk about assignment 2. So assignment 2 is posted up on eCentennial. You should have access to it now. What is it? You're going to be building a to-do list. Now, why a to-do list? It's very simple. It's there for you to practice persistent data storage. Now, we haven't talked about persistent data storage other than last week or the week before, we talked about preferences, user preferences. And that was kind of our first way of doing things. Next week, we will be talking about other methods of persistent data storage, right? So it should give you enough information to get going. Now, I mentioned a couple of them here. You could use the default system, SQLite, Core Data, Firebase, one of those types of data storage in your result. You can also use iCloud, some other ways of doing things. There's CloudKit and so on that's out there that you can totally use to do your data storage. So if you're if you're already learning Firebase, maybe you did in Android or in your Node.js projects, then you can take a look at that as well. And it's not that difficult to set up. So we'll talk about more about that in a second. But let's talk about what you're making. You're making this to-do app. This assignment is for you and one other person. It's not going to be up to 3 this time around, so 2 people. The idea for this one is to make sure that you have an app that uses some of the stuff that we talked about before, which is things like some kind of list, like a table, all right? And I've given you flexibility again to make this thing. But the real core of this app is saving your data. So when I have a to-do list, it's like a shopping list that we did last week, kind of stuff for our little exam, but this gives us something that we can save. So if I have a to-do, it's something that I'm going to do today. I have 5 things I got to do. And then I want to come back and check it off. I want to say it's done, right? So that's really what this app is. Very silly app, simple app, but it gives you the core of how to save stuff either to a database or to some other kind of data store. And if you know how to do it with iOS, you can do it with Android, you can do it with the web, you can do it with other things. Again, this is one of my, I would say 4 different Hello World apps, right, that I always learn. When I always do stuff with beginning programmers, we do a calculator app. I do some kind of other kind of list app, like a shopping list or a other kind of list app like this, and then a to-do list, because a to-do list app is basically, got persistent data, right? It stores stuff, so it allows you to do things like this, right? So, and that's why I'm getting us to do it. So to get you guys all the things you need before we get into second semester, which will include more advanced topics and techniques. So you need to know at least how to do all this stuff. So I can say, okay, well, we know how to do persistent data. Now we can have more interesting apps, okay? Up until now, we haven't really touched that. We've been dealing with really basic controls for iOS, but although it seems basic, they're not basic because we've learned Swift along the way, right? Which is kind of the idea. We're learning just-in-time Swift here. We don't have a full Swift course, right? Which, we'll do more Swift, in this semester a little bit more, and next semester will be more advanced stuff that we're going to talk about because it's just getting your feet wet. Also, you've learned a little bit of the Mac, people who never used the Mac before. I got to talk about those things as well. So, there's a bit of a buildup. But now we're going to get into a little bit more functionality. So it says it's displayed in a table view, which means you need to make use of the table views we talked about, right? Today, we're going to be talking about custom cells, right, in the collection views thing that I posted already. But each to-do, this task, if you will include a switch view, some kind of switch or check mark or something. It doesn't have to be a switch view. I said switch view, but you can make it so it's a checkbox where you check it and then it crosses it out or grays it out or something, right? Now I said it should gray it out, but you can also cross it out if you're that good, right, to make it work. But it doesn't delete it, all right? That's not what I'm asking for. Don't delete it, just cross it out like it's done. So you show that it's done. So again, task, something of an activity you want to do. I went shopping. I need to go to the party. I need to go, 10 things that I want to do or whatever it is, right? I have to do my homework. I got an assignment number 2 due. I got to do the UI for my assignment. I got to do whatever, right? I got to meet with my team, cross those things off, right? Like a to-do list. And okay, and each to-do should include an edit button. Okay, so think about that. Now I'm looking for buttons on the cells, right? So some kind of buttons or some other kind of way of making the table view work. So you have each view has buttons, which is a little bit more advanced than we've seen before. Okay, so you've got to-do detail screen, which basically when you actually press on the to-do, it gives you more details. Like for example, maybe you have some notes about the to-do, right? Of your task, whatever it is. Like I want to meet with my friends. That might be the short description. And then on the second screen, you have a longer description of things you're going to do. What kind of activities you're going to do with your friends that day, right? Or what kind of things you want to study. If you're going to go to the library, I got to go to the library to study, or here's the 10 things I got to do there, right? And that's on the other page, the details page, right? Some kind of persistent storage solution. You could use SQLite, Core Data, Firebase, something like I talked about before. And it will contain the to-dos data. So the data is going to be stored somewhere where you can retrieve it. Okay, it's not something where you use it and you go away from your app, you come back and the app is clean again. No. That's no good, right? The storage solution must record the following properties of the to-do. So this is almost like your database structure, if you will. Or it could be inside of a preference list, however you want to store it. I'm giving you lots of, different options, right, to do this. Whether it's a name, you have to have your name, almost like a short description of what the task is. If it's completed or not, it's a Boolean, and some kind of notes, a larger string, kind of component, multi-lines of notes or whatever that you want to store, okay? So that's the data structure. Then that's the first screen. The first screen is basically, hey, these are all my to-dos, right? Your to-do detail screen should include the following components: the to-do name, right? Some notes, an update button if you want to change the details, right? A delete button and a cancel button. Okay, so I haven't drawn it up for you this time because I want you to come up with a user interface for this. These are the requirements. And next lab, which I'm going to be talking about in a second, that means for next week, one of your tasks is to start your assignment and hand in your user interface, just like we did for assignment number 1, right? With your calculator. Hand it in, you and your partner, as an example, or you on your own if you don't want to work with anybody this time. That's perfectly fine. You hand in 2 designs. Now, we learned from last week what we did with those 2 designs. So think carefully. Think about where the button should be placed. Think about all these things. That last week was almost like a practice for this big thing, okay? Internal documentation, just like we said before, when it comes to comments and that kind of stuff, I want to see those things. And, of course, GitHub. All right, so those things are normal, the things that you normally would expect to see. And your marking breakdown is here. So 40 marks for 20%. So it's pretty crazy. When is this due? It's due January 3rd. Sounds like a long way away. It's not that long. We have a break in between, and then it's going to come. That's why next week I'm paying you again to do your user interface early to start. So not like the Android guys who didn't start it until last week or whatever for the stuff that's due today, or whatever, or Monday. Is it Monday? Right. I'm paying you to start now, so that way by next week you already started your user interface. Otherwise, you'll never start. There's going to be other things going on, right? So that's going to be worth 2%. I'm going to mark it in class next week. So I'm going to go around saying, is it done? It'll be due by midnight next week, but I want to see that it's done, that you've got everything going on. So I also mentioned Firebase. I want to just talk about that. If I go to Firebase, for example, what is that? If you guys don't know what that is, it is a free database solution from Google. You can log in with your Google account. And what it allows you to do is there's different ways of storing your data. And it's not a traditional database like SQL-like database. It's like a NoSQL database, okay? What was that? Like Mongo, but it's not like Mongo. It's different, okay? So it's a NoSQL database, but it allows you to, to look at your project, and you can see how, as an example, you can set up things like analytics and a bunch of other stuff. So, for example, let's set up a new project in Firebase 1 second. And notice it says, you know, here's my awesome project. Notice also that it also works with Android, iOS, and the web. That's what this is. Excuse me. Country or region, we want to put in Canada, right? Here it is. And we can name our project whatever we want. So I don't know, let's call it my demo project. Here it is. It's going to give you a project ID, right? And then we can create our project. Okay. And we're going to talk more about Firebase again next semester, but I wanted to bring it to you this semester just in case you wanted to explore that. It's good learnings for you because part of this assignment is going to be your own research, part of it, right? Because you're going to choose which way you want to persist your data. It's up to you, right? All right, so here's my demo project as an example. I can also go to docs, documentation. This is very, very good. You can see that there's a getting started for iOS, right? An API reference and so on. Very, very straightforward. Notice it also works with Unity, C++, Android, and a bunch of other platforms, right? So here's iOS. It tells you that it's got to be Xcode 8 or later, right? And basically, if you look through it, it tells you how to set up your app and create your Firebase in the Firebase console. What about the SDK? How does it work? And all that kind of stuff. Okay, so it's very straightforward if you actually read through this. We're not going to do that right now, but it includes other things too, like messaging, different kinds of storage, like different kinds of storage that you can sit there. And they also have some of the samples and libraries and everything else. So this is Google. It's a very popular solution. Let me tell you that people use because it's cross-platform, right? So I don't have to use SQLite on my device. I can use Firebase, and then my database, the same database, can work on both devices, which is really good. So that's why people do it now. That's the plus side. On the minus side, if you don't have a persistent data connection, then you may have a database that's out of date, right? Which is totally fine. It happens with some of our apps, but just letting you know that this is how it works. So, and again, I'll detail more about how to use Firebase with iOS in an upcoming lecture. It's not today, but like I said, we're going to be talking about persistent data next week, and I want to go through different cases, and this is one of them that I recommend. Okay. Yes. It's on the device, but you'll have some part that will store, but most of it will be on the cloud. If you don't connect, you'll have old data, right? So we'll talk about it. And some people use hybrid approach. You store some stuff on the cloud, and then you pull things from the cloud, you store it somewhere locally, like on a preference list somewhere, and then when you connect back up to the cloud, you synchronize, right? There's different ways of doing things, more advanced stuff. So let's, this is one of the ones I recommend. You're going to have a project next semester, and the project is going to be something that's going to span across all technologies, Android, iOS, web, whatever, right? And you need some kind of data persistence. And you could, depending on the kind of app you decide to build, right? You can use Firebase, you can use other things. And Professor Ilya, who's going to host your capstone project, and I believe it's going to be on Wednesdays, right? Next semester, like normal. Then you'll go into it and you'll build something more robust. But this is one of those things that I'm trying to get you ready for how to do everything you need to do for next semester. So this is definitely something I recommend you look at. Firebase, you can research this. If you really want to use this, you can start early, start thinking about how to make this work. And again, you could choose some of the other options as well, right? Whether you want to use SQLite or Core Data, there's lots of other options, and they have different advantages and disadvantages, which we'll go into next week, okay? So that's that one. Let's get back to this. So that's really what you're building. Again, it doesn't say it here, but I put it inside the Dropbox details where you can build it with yourself and somebody else. Like, so you do pair programming, okay, again. So I don't need, let's say everyone to do it on their own. If you want to do it on your own, if you don't want to work with anybody, you certainly can this time around. But I highly recommend, with the details and everything else that's coming down the pipe from all the other things you're getting, like, from the other courses, that you may not have time to do it on your own, right? So combine with somebody else like you normally did. I only need one submission. for the two of you, and then you can submit this one. So that's happening again January 3rd. You got a couple weeks class time next week, and then when you come back, I'm going to see you, right? And you're going to have everything ready. So next week is critical in terms. I know, and everything is critical in terms of our how to do data stuff next week. So please don't miss next week's session because it's critical. All right, let's go into the other thing. I also have up online, if you notice, if I'm not wrong, I have lab 4, right? That I kind of put up, right? Lab Dropbox, lab 4, right? Lab 4 is the UI assignment for UI for assignment 2. And let's go back in there. I meant to do one of those. Let's take a look what it says. So it says, it's very simple, 2%. This is what it's due. It's due week 12, this next week, Wednesday, December 20th, right? At midnight, right? And what does it do? You're going to create at least 2 UI designs for assignment 2, right? You and your partner. Please ensure you include appropriate labels for your design to indicate what each control does. Deploy the winning design to Xcode and begin assignment 2. That's what really I want you to do. You're getting paid for it. Start early. Well, start on time, really. I need a PDF document of your designs. So it's not going to be a Word document. I want a PDF of your 2 designs, right? A zip archive of your Xcode project that includes your chosen design and deployed to make it work, right? We'll talk about how to do different things today to make that happen. And a link to your GitHub repo, the one that you're going to be using for your assignment, right? It doesn't have to be complete next week. I want to see it started. That's what I want to see. So don't leave it empty. It should have your UI design, right? That's what I'm looking for next week. So that's kind of a partner lab that's coming, or kind of you have your assignment and your associated lab that goes with your assignment, and that's the one to help you get going, okay? Any questions about assignment 2 and lab 4? Okay, I'm going to stop recording this one. This is all around that, all the details they need, just in case you want to look that up. And if you can't remember what I said, so I'm going to stop recording this one.